Many people say that the state must finally take care of the people. In general, should the state take care of the people, or should it just give people the freedom and that's it? If we talk about the state, then in the Russian language, the word state is one root with the word gift. And a gift is something that comes from the bounty of the soul, free of charge, without expecting anything in return. If we talk about how the state is understood abroad, then we need to recall the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. He said that the legitimate task of the government is to do for the society of people what people, each in their individual capacity, cannot do either at all or well enough. If we agree that Lincoln gave the correct definition of the purpose of the state, then our state, over the past 200 years, changes its form, but does not fulfill its duty to do for the society of people what people, each acting in their individual capacity, cannot do either at all or well enough. Then the question arises, what should the state do to really take care of its citizens? Can the situation change for the better? The situation is already changing for the better, but much more slowly than we would like. Let's recall Heart of a Dog. Professor Preobrazhensky used to say, ruin, therefore, is not caused by lavatories, but it's something that starts in people's heads. If a society is going through a crisis, it means that the opinions that are considered true are mostly absurd. And when politics is based on absurd science, then the result is obviously inadequate, which does not suit everyone. Therefore, you need to understand what is really happening and what needs to be done. Several problems are tangled into one knot. The first problem is lifestyle. Few people know that in 1944, a Soviet geneticist, future academician, Dubinin, conducted a study on the Drosophila fly in the city of Voronezh. He concluded that urban populations are identical to rural populations. In 1946, the research was repeated. In 1944, Voronezh had been defeated, and there was nothing there. But in 1946, some industry was again up and running, and it turned out that the fly mutated under the influence of man-made environmental factors. The human genome, according to Dubinin's estimates, is 40 to 50 times more sensitive to the effects of mutagenic factors than the genome of the Drosophila fly. Accordingly, in developed countries, about 80 to 95% of the population lives in cities. The metropolis eats up about 5 years of a person's life. If about 90% of the population lives in cities, this means that Western civilization is entering a biological dead end, since the reproduction of a biologically healthy population in cities is in principle impossible. Therefore, the statistics of growth of diseases is growing at a faster rate than the birth rate, and it already comes to oncological lesions of the fetus in the womb. Therefore, Western civilization does not need either a nuclear war or Chernobyl. They will simply degenerate biologically. This way of life arose on the basis of a liberal market economic model, according to which the state should not interfere in the economy. But the laws of market pricing are such that there is a concentration of population, industry, services in cities. The rest of the area is depopulated, and in the past, the flow of population from the rural areas to cities was a factor in the biological and genetic improvement of the urban population. So, if we wish to overcome the crisis, then we must first of all say that metropolitan urbanization is a dead end, that population and production should be dispersed throughout the country in settlements where nature is accessible to humans, and humans do not live in isolation from nature. But this way of life of civilization presupposes 1. Rejection of the liberal market economic model, 2. Recognition of the fact that the state plan in the USSR worked incorrectly, abominably, based on the planning of an incorrect methodology, and 3. The revival of the functioning of a state body similar in functions to the state plan, but on the basis of a substantially different economic science. This is the variant that is being implemented in the country now, but slowly. Moreover, it is being implemented regardless of whether the government wants it or not, because we must admit that unfortunately our political elite is a collection of people who are illiterate in terms of governance and incompetent in matters of sociology, economics, and human psychology. Unfortunately, the liberal market model regards the population as an economic resource. Therefore, it is easier to handle a resource if its needs are met at a minimum. In addition, the liberal economy produces an economically surplus population which must be destroyed, since it is useless within it, either as producers at the prevailing prices on the labor market, or as consumers at the prevailing prices for services and products. The needs of people are certain needs that are conditioned by the natural biology of man and sociological laws, on the basis of which it is possible to reproduce a biologically healthy and culturally developed population in the continuity of generations. That is, these processes can be governed because the volume of these needs is predictable, and the predictability of needs means that the country's economic system can fully and in good time be prepared for guaranteed satisfaction. The question may arise, and if there is suddenly some kind of force majeure, war, disease, etc., wars do not arise from scratch and just like that. At least the last 4 world wars, starting with the wars of Napoleon and the Crimean, were organized by England, which was neatly able to shift responsibility from itself onto others. If we talk about biological catastrophes, then many catastrophes of a natural character are the result of the psychological instability of society, because thought is material, and that confusion that reigns supreme in the heads of the population has a response in the form of natural disasters. These factors can be avoided or anticipated. But for example, there is scientific and technological progress, and it is poorly predictable. But I threw away my old refrigerator from 1957 only last year, and while it worked, I had no need for a new one. This is the question of how we relate to consumption, i.e., if a thing is of high quality, ergonomic, it is convenient to work with it, it has a good resource, you can satisfy the needs of society in everything. If the criterion for the quality of a thing is the last cry of fashion, then you are doomed to live in an impoverished country. If we believe that we should live in a society where the dictatorship of Soviet reigns, then there is no need for the NKVD. There is no need for the Inquisition. If you stand on the position that man is a talking monkey that needs to be brutally trained, then the NKVD in tandem with the Inquisition is not enough for you. There was such a historian, Kluchevsky. One of his aphorisms goes like this: "The trouble with Russians is that Russian women are good daughters and wives, but bad mothers." Many may be offended, but let's look at the life of the biological species Homo sapiens in the continuity of generations and not over a short interval. A man works with problems directly, while a woman has the mission of reproducing the population. Outside of her, no one can give birth. The first months, years of life, the child is attached to the mother, and a woman solves problems indirectly through her children. This is not a natural factor in biology, because there is a cultural aspect of the issue. After all, we do not think that Mary was the mother of Jesus Christ for no reason. She had certain qualities of the psyche. As a result, Jesus matured to the level of human. A woman should be able to choose a husband from whom she can conceive correctly, bear correctly, and give birth to a healthy child, and during the first years of the child's life, to give spiritual potential, thanks to which 10 to 15 years later, he will become a creator. And our Minister of Education said that the trouble with the Soviet school is that it raised a creator, but it is necessary to bring up a qualified consumer. How does a person differ from the whole animal world? The answer to this question is extremely simple. The structure of the psyche of any representative of the animal world is genetically programmed. The structure of the human psyche is not programmed genetically unambiguously. Therefore, in languages there are sayings about the fact that there are many people, but few humans. Just imagine an individual in a 600 Mercedes with a mobile phone, but all his behavior is subjugated to instincts. How does this differ organizationally and psychologically from a homodrill? Not at all. Another variant. All behavior is programmed by cultural norms. Another 30 years will pass, a humanoid robot will appear. Can you tell such an individual from a robot? No. The third variant. I do what I want. The demonic type of structure of the psyche is perfectly described by Lermontov in his poem The Demon. And the fourth variant is human. Saint Ignaty Brianchaninov wrote directly that a person outside of prayerful communion with God is not a human but a humanoid. Therefore, when we talk about the fact that the earth is overpopulated, that some will perish, the question arises, who will perish? Will humans die out, or the humanoid representatives of the species of Homo sapiens, who never matured to the level of human? After all, no one prevents an individual from contemplating the eternal, his personal relationship with God, and proceeding from this to find his place in providence and guarantee his life and the continuation of his bloodline. But 7 billion humans are too many for the planet. Therefore, the problem of stimulating women to give birth is not relevant. The strongest do not survive. This is a problem of intraspecific competition. The point is that from above, the desire to become a human is supported. If people deviate from this, then they will become victims of God's allowance. And the policy of the state can be directed in such a way that it prevents a person from becoming a human, or it can be directed in order that it not interfere with the person becoming a human. No one can do the work for the individual himself that is necessary for him to become a human. This is personal development. It is impossible to buy or donate. Until now, the post-Soviet state has not provided such an opportunity for personal development. If you characterize what happened in the 90s, it was economic genocide. If a humanoid drinks, smokes, then do you think this is supported from above? Who needs it? That is, the position obligates. If it does not obligate, then the position kills.